Draw your knees into your chest and extend them straight up. So the soles of the feet face the sky. And then reach your fingertips up toward the sky. Bug on its back pose. Begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes by scrunching the hands into fists and then expanding them, and then scrunching the toes and then extending them. Like you're doing jazz hands on and off, and jazz feet. Then begin to circle your wrists and your ankles. Go both ways, opening the joints. And begin to bend and straighten the elbows and the knees. Opening the elbow joints and the knee joints. And bring your knees into your chest and rest the hands on the knees, one on each knee. Circle the knees apart and back together to open the hip joints. Reverse directions. Come back to center. Drop the soles of the feet to the floor. Create a soft bend in the knees so there's about the same distance between your heels and your kneecaps as there is between your heels and your sitting bones. Then let your arms rest by your sides on the floor. Now imagine there is a string tied to the right shoulder and the left hip, and it's going across the front of your body. Feel that string begin to get shorter and shorter, drawing the right shoulder toward the left hip and the left hip toward the right shoulder. And you'll come into kind of an asymmetrical little crunch, contracting the front body. Then begin to slowly relax, dropping the right shoulder back to your mat, letting the left hip come back to neutral. Now imagine that string is tied from the right shoulder to the left hip, but on the back body. And it begins to get shorter and shorter, and the right shoulder tucks underneath you. The left hip tips forward, and you come into kind of a lopsided back bend. It could be really small, but feel as though you're contracting right shoulder to left hip to right shoulder, and then slowly begin to relax, letting go as smoothly as you can, back to neutral. We'll do that 3 more times each way. Right shoulder goes to left hip on the front, doing a little curl, and then relax. Relax all the way. And then draw right shoulder and left hip towards each other, but on the back body, lopsided back bend. And then relax. Consciously check in to relax completely before you do 2 more, each direction. This time, let your awareness be with your own experience, maybe even studying it a little bit, not to fix it, just to listen And let listening be enough. When you've done 2 more each way, come back to rest and pause. Can you sense the effects of the exercise in your body? Let's even things out. Imagine there is a string tied to the left shoulder and the right hip. Going across the front of your body, it begins to shorten, drawing the left shoulder up off the floor toward the right hip toward the shoulder. A little crunch, contracting the front body asymmetrically, and then begin to let go, slow and smooth and steady. Let yourself completely relax. And then imagine that string's now tied to the back body, connecting left shoulder, right hip. The string gets shorter and the left shoulder tucks under, right hip tips forward, lopsided back bend. And then relax, slow and steady. Unwind back to rest. And we'll do 3 more each way. Left hip goes toward left shoulder goes toward right hip on the front body. Little curl inward. And then a release. And tuck the left shoulder, tip the right hip forward, little lopsided back bend. And release. Do the next 2 in silence, tuning into your own experience, studying it. Hold yourself with compassion. There's nothing you need to fix. This moment is complete, just as it is. When you have done 2 more each way, come back to rest and notice. Can you sense the change in your body? Now draw your knees into your chest and roll over onto one side. Press yourself to seated. Find your way to a comfortable seat, which could be sitting in Sukhasana, a cross-legged position. You could sit on a block or a blanket in hero pose, Virasana on the knees. And elevate your hips a little bit higher than your knees so that the low back can relax, so that you don't feel like someone's trying to pull you down onto your back. And then feel your sitting bones rooting you down so you can press the top of the head up to lengthen the spine. Let the shoulder blades rest down your back. Now let your arms hang from the sockets at your side. Begin to circle the shoulders up and back to open the shoulder joints. Reverse directions. And come back to center. As you inhale, sweep your arms up to shoulder height. As you exhale, turn to the left. Bring your right forearm onto your belly, the left forearm onto your back, and gaze toward the left shoulder. Then inhale back to center. Sweep your arms up to shoulder height. Exhale, turn to the right. Bring your left forearm onto your belly, the right forearm onto your low back. Gaze at the right shoulder. Inhale to center, arms sweep up to shoulder height. Exhale, turn to the left. Hug front and back body with your forearms. Inhale, center, arms sweep up. Exhale to the right, hug front and back with forearms. Do that a few more times at your own pace. You might add a little massage with your hands across your belly and your low back as you turn back to center. It's called a prana massage. Soothing, supporting our pranic body. We'll finish by turning to the right. We'll meet back together in the center. Release the arms to the sides. Come onto your hands and knees. Cushion your knees with a blanket if you're on a hard floor, and position your blocks if you want to use blocks to come to standing. Bring your wrists under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. You can spread the fingers wide if you're on your hands, or you can come onto your fists if you have sensitive wrists. Now extend your right leg back behind you and bring the toes to the mat. If your right hip is tipping up, press it down so that the hips are level. So someone who's serving tea could come set the tea tray on your low back and your sacrum, and the tea would not spill. Then take a breath in as you press into the ball of the right foot. You might shift back just about a centimeter, or it could be a couple inches, and then release as you exhale and shift your weight off of the back foot. Then inhale and press into the ball of the back foot. Exhale, shift forward to release. Do that a few more times with breath. Opening up the back of the right leg. And if you're pressing out through the heel, you're also strengthening. We'll meet together in neutral. Wrists over under the shoulders. Lift the right leg up and escort it across the body. Let the toes come back to the floor. So the right leg is crossing behind you. Keep dropping the right hip down and then look over at the right heel across the left shoulder. Begin to circle the hips by drifting them forward, circling them back and around and forward. And you might feel a little stretch come into the outside of the right hip. Go both directions. Circles can be really small. Then come back to center, bringing the knee back underneath you. Scoop your lower belly up and in. Inhale to press the hands and the knees down. As you exhale, let your hips drop back to your heels. Bring your forehead to the mat or a block, and let your arms rest on the floor overhead in child's pose. Inhale back onto all fours, wrists under shoulders or on fists. Fingers spread wide. Extend the left leg, bring the toes to the mat. Level out the hips by dropping the left hip down. As you inhale, press into the ball of the left foot. And then as you exhale, release that pressure by bringing your weight forward. Then inhale, press into the ball of the foot. Press out through the heel and then release as you come forward. Do that a few more times. Opening up the back of the leg. Another thing to note here is if your head is dropping down, lift it up so the neck's in line with the spine. We'll meet together in neutral, shoulders right over the wrists. Lift your left leg up, escort it across the body to the right side and bring the toes back to the floor. Look over the right shoulder at the foot. Then begin to stir the hips. Circling them forward, around, and forward. Opening up the outside of the left hip. This is also getting into the gallbladder meridian in Qigong. Circle both ways if you haven't already. Then come back to table. Take a little scoop of your belly up and in. Inhale the hands and the knees down. Exhale back to child's pose. Take a moment of pause to integrate, to receive the practice.